Welcome to Sustainability and Luxury. The panel discussion will take approximately 40 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A at the end. But before getting started, I would like to introduce our luxurious and sustainable panelists. Charu Gandhi is founder and director of Elysian. She's a qualified architect who began her career working on UK and international projects at Allies and Morris. In 2011, Charu joined the private commission team at Candy & Candy Group, where she ran a prestigious international portfolio of commissions, including exclusive villas and private homes across India and Africa, as well as One Hyde Park. Charu established Elysian in 2014, driven by a desire to combine the rigors of her architectural training with her creative flair and passion. Characterized by her soulful combinations of color, antiques, craftsmanship, and attention to detail, Nicola Harding, Nicola Harding's work resonates with and reflects her clients' deeper stories. Harding and Reid have designed this year's VIP lounge at Decorex, so make sure you check it out, and have used the project to explore the question of sustainability within interior design, choosing the concept of legacy as their theme. London-based interior designer Henry Prideaux is known for combining classic and contemporary interior styles to create real homes with character and a focus on decorative detail. Established in 2014, Henry Prideaux Interior Design provides a professional service that enhances every property so that each is designed to be unique yet maintain style and practicality. As the creative force behind the company, Henry is passionate about his craft and consistently strives to develop beautiful, original, bespoke interiors for his clients. Finally, now in its 25 years, Vitruvius champions the respectful reuse of salvage material alongside a broad approach to sustainability, turning reused materials to distinctive contemporary ends. Maria Speake leads the design studio, working with savvy and sophisticated clients from the worlds of fashion, film, and media. The design studio applies the Vitruvius ethos to select interior design and architectural projects, both domestic and commercial. So now you know who they all are, and we are thrilled to have our star panelists here with us today. To start, I would like them to give us a little background about their brands. So if you could each tell us maybe in one or two lines what your brand is about, maybe starting with Charu.
So Elysian is a interior design studio that brings together architecture and interior design under one roof. The name Elysian actually kind of defines what we do. It's a portmanteau of the words halcyon, which means a moment in time, and Elysium Fields, which is a space of bliss. And I think it sort of relates to, what is luxury. I founded the studio with the idea that if we could create spaces for our clients where time and space stood still, celebrated who they were. And that's really the ethos of the studio, is to create these incredible spaces for our clients. We are a 22-strong team, mix of interior designers and architects working on private residential, developer clients, and hospitality in the UK, in Asia, and America. So we have quite an international breadth of work.
Who would like to go next? Henry.
Hi, I'm Henry Prideaux. I run my residential interiors practice in London and work very closely with a small team with our clients to create things like you see on the screen now. I spent quite a lot of time working with Nikki Haslam, so I learned quite a lot there, and also worked at Harrods in their interior design studio before setting up on my own.
Wonderful. And Maria, tell us more about your brand.
Is this on? Oh,
it's on.
Good. Well, I was involved in starting Vitruvius, as you very kindly said, 25 years ago, which started as an architectural salvage company through the sheer shock, horror of seeing how much was the very destructive process through which these wonderful houses eventually come apart. I mean, churches, hospitals, schools, all sorts of things. And we started salvaging these materials simply because the quality was incredible. This was before the whole green movement had really got going. It was a very brilliant way as an architecture student to learn about materials, because actually when you're an architect, they don't teach you anything. It's very diagrammatic. But then we became very frustrated with how conservatively these materials were potentially being reused. And so slowly we started doing design projects with everything from timbers through to cigar molds, through to big window architraves, everything. Anyway, and they get reincorporated and create very strong, interesting narratives. And we have a small design team, which is a lot of fun.
Wonderful. And how about you, Nicola?
I suppose maybe what defines us as a practice is our obsession with stories. We're fascinated by our clients' personal stories and the stories of the pieces and the buildings that we work with over the course of a project, and see ourselves as a kind of matchmaking service, pairing up clients with the perfect pieces that go with them. So a bit like Maria working with reclaimed pieces, I agree with you. I think they have such incredible stories to tell, and to find the perfect client to match them with is part of the fun of it.
And Maria, what is, and the rest of you, what is luxury to you, and what is luxury to your clients? Because I know you work with a very sophisticated group of people who have done it all, seen it all, and then they come to you.
Well,
no pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them have. I mean, I'm amazed now how sophisticated and well-traveled and explored an enormous amount of people are. So you can't pull the wool over anyone's eyes. And I would say some of them have come from very privileged environments, but actually there's a very strong need and sense to feel like they're doing good with their money, for their own health, for the opportunities that they can give in terms of commissioning other designers. And I think the quality of the materials, when you use them reclaimed, there's an element of guilt-free. So I think it's definitely moved on from, what is luxury? Anyway, that's the main question.
What is luxury, Charu?
So for us, I think luxury at its core, actually resonating what Nicola said, is we really, really delve deeply into our clients' lives. And I think ultimately, if we all think about what feels meaningful and luxurious to us, it's when something's made for you, made for your home, for your property. So our interpretation of that is we weave a story around our clients' lives and their projects that celebrates their desires, how they live, but it's in the context of the home, it's in the context of craft and art and celebrating the journey of design. So I think for us the ultimate is if a client at the end of the project feels like we've created something for them, their particularities, but in the process they've fallen in love with design and they come away from it engaged and invested in design and craft. I think that's luxury. The tailor-made element of it is luxury.
What would the rest of you say?
For me, it's going to be different for every person and every client that you have. And it's more about making sure that whatever I'm designing for that client in any particular room, that they're living their life with ease every day. You're making their life easier. And that's not necessarily using the most expensive materials, fabrics, woods, whatever it might be. Everything needs to have its place, and you need to make their life easier. And that really is a luxury. It doesn't necessarily mean covering everything with diamonds or gold or anything like that.
Nicola, you haven't used diamonds or gold in your VIP
No,
lounge.
damn, that was a real missed opportunity.
Yes, next year. The space, however, feels really luxurious and comfortable. What in your practice, how would you define luxury?
Well, talking about the lounge, we've chosen to explore this concept of legacy, and maybe that is a good reference for luxury. Maybe luxury does mean spending more than you could otherwise get away with. But if you're buying well and buying less, or investing in a piece that's then going to last, and so I think I would have my mind to that, how well something might last, and that has to do with the materiality, how it will age, and natural materials often age better, the quality of the craftsmanship, and how beautiful it is and how useful it is. If it can stand the test of time in all those categories, then maybe it's a luxury item.
And it sounds also that this luxury is also sustainable. And so is sustainability to you then using those things that will last?
Yeah, I think waste is the greatest enemy of sustainability. So if we can design things for our clients that they're not going to be inclined to get rid of, that they do want to hand down to future generations, then sustainability goes hand in hand with luxury.
And Charu, what is sustainability to you at the upper end of the market? So you walk in and the client has bought a flat in One Hyde Park. How is that? How can that be made sustainable?
So I think that to us there are three pillars to sustainability. There's the past, which looks at preservation. So we also do a lot of work with listed buildings or projects that have been built well in the past. So it's preserving, understanding what should be kept, like Nicola said, the waste. So understanding and appreciating. Then there's the present, and with the changes we make, what can we preserve from what we're changing? We're on the cusp of starting a project in Belgrave Square where there's a brand new kitchen, but the client doesn't like it. And we are thinking about what we could do with that kitchen. When we replace it, can we donate it to a meaningful cause? So in the present, what can we do? So I really try, even if it's actually sometimes the team takes home bits of the project, any way of avoiding waste. And then there's the future. And I think that's about creation, because alongside preservation has to come creation and building of a new legacy. And I think it's encouraging, educating our clients to invest in the quality of product where it's built to last, and building things. I think for us what we found is really key is to build things that can adapt. So if it's a couple today, are they going to have their parents living with them later? Can we create flexible spaces where there's potential for change without disruption and waste? So past, present, future, and if we can think about all those three in a sort of holistic approach on every project, then we are making a meaningful contribution every step of the way.
And it's our jobs as designers to look to the future about how you're going to design a house, because that client is likely not going to change much in there for 15 years maybe. They might have another house which you could do, which would be great, but in that particular house you need to be designing for the future. So for example, children's rooms, I seem to do quite a lot of those where the joinery needs to adapt to the child as it gets older, the size of the bed. So anything that you can do to design around their changing lifestyle is going to help. And that's just at the design process, let alone using materials or vintage pieces or antique pieces, which we do as well.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing as well, simply because half of the business is about taking things out of projects when they are deemed redundant, whatever that means. We see a lot of hours of thought and process that have gone into making these wonderful places that are very particular to that room at that moment in time. But actually, that then that piece of furniture, often the built-in bit, is almost impossible to reuse, or the way in which you extract it damages it or whatever. So us as designers need to really be factoring in, you know, how these elements are going to come out. It goes back to the flexibility as much as possible. How, you know, how they're fixed. I spend so much time talking to contractors saying, please, please, please don't glue it. You know, let's make, you know, like in boats in the past, you know, the screws used to be just sort of like a fabulous stitch mark, and therefore you can remove that panel, ceiling, skirting, whatever it might be, which can then get to the surfaces that might need to be there.
You can access everything on a boat.
Yeah, and change it.
Yes.
You know. Yeah, anyway, it's a big thing.
I think it's huge. Yeah, screws rather than nails.
Yes, exactly.
Panels rather than glue, and thinking about and not complicating things too much wherever possible, keeping things to one materiality so that if it's not reused, it can be recycled.
Yeah, but there's so much which is trying to educate yourself in the process. I mean, I think that's an enormous part of the issue for all of us, not really knowing which materials are good or bad. You know, in different contexts, they make sense. But, you know, oh my God, is that thing full of glues? Well, you know, what's that from a sustainability? I mean, my bit is obviously salvage and reuse, but that doesn't mean we don't use textiles. We can't always use reclaimed textiles. You know, you start looking at that in terms of dyeing, water use, air mileage, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just a hideous can of worms. So somehow in that can of worms, you've also got to remain creative and come up with some of these fabulous things that you see before you.
And come up with something that the client likes and wants and desires as well. And Henry, how do you tackle that balance between sustainability and luxury when a client wants something that, you know, maybe is a little wasteful, and then you want to lead them to something equally clever and creative and beautiful, but maybe more, sustainable?
I was just laughing at when you said, look at these nice things in front of you, and actually everything in that picture was old.
Yeah, exactly.
So it had been reused.
Yeah.
That library is actually all brand new, and it's made out of solid timber. Whether it is, whether that could be probably could be taken out, that library actually. Sorry, I've slightly forgotten what the question was, because I was just talking about vintage furniture, but that's another thing.
We were looking
as well.
at your beautiful pictures, and you were telling us about how to balance sustainability and luxury when the client wants one thing, and then it may not be so responsible.
Yeah, the one thing I find hard is when a client has spent a huge amount of money buying their house, they've really maxed out their budget, and then they come round to doing the furnishing, and I know how much it would cost to, if they put a picture in front of me and say, I like that kind of thing, and I sort of know how much that's going to cost them if they want it done a certain way. And quite often it comes down to budget and what they can afford. And so sometimes we will spend a bit of money on a few key pieces and then not do a few items, so the room might be a little bit sparse to start with, and then we'll add to it over time. I've got one client who I'm doing that with now. We're doing a room at a time for budget reasons, and also just until we find the right pieces that will work.
Which gives them more time to actually consider what it is they're buying.
It does, yeah, it does, and allows the whole design process to develop. A lot of what I do is very collaborative with the client. So the more time I spend with them, the more time I can understand exactly what is going to make them happy.
Those therapy sessions.
Yeah, yeah, couples therapy or marriage guidance. It's not interior design, it develops over time.
I mean, I would go back to my earlier point where I feel that the sustainability and the luxury go hand in hand, because it's those more expensive pieces that are more likely to stand the test of time. But when there are instances where a client wants to have stone that needs to be shipped from overseas rather than choosing a British alternative, then we would suggest to them that they could carbon offset that choice So yeah, I guess that's one way of doing it.
But how do you get them to carbon offset? I mean, not to put you on the spot.
No. Well,
I mean,
it's actually something that we're looking at. Joe there has been advising us from how. You can all go and ask Joe. We want to write a statement of intent as a company where we'll put these things out that we can present to our clients, that if they want to make choices like stone or fabrics that need to come a long way, that they can spend an amount of money that will then be put against like buying trees or options like that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a surprising number of clients who actually would like to have that option open to them and understand how to do it. And actually also explaining to clients that if they wait longer and actually the workshop in the UK can do it rather than it being rushed through overseas, or bundling orders together rather than having lots of deliveries to have things as they're ready. Once they understand the difference that decision can make, they're prepared to do it.
Sorry, that goes back to your point of talking about bespoke and actually how, yes, that is incredibly wonderful to have something made for you, but it really, really, really isn't always the most expensive option.
No.
At all.
No.
And
Not at all.
I mean,
Not
it's
at all.
so much fun. We regularly work with different textile designers, and then we just find fabulously cost-effective textiles that are made in this country in mills up in Manchester, Yorkshire, or whatever. And I promise you, I mean, I know I probably shouldn't say that here, but with all those marvellous supplies out there, but, there's a lot of fabulous fabrics out there for £12, £15, whatever a metre, that look top dollar. And then when you link that with a marvellous young designer straight out of the Royal College or somewhere similar, I mean, it's a win-win situation. And everyone feels like they've had fun and some stress along the way.
Charu, you mentioned earlier how you try to recycle those kitchens that you encounter, or try to convince the client to keep things that are existing if they're new and in good condition. So obviously, good design and to have thought about how things are going to be used is important. Tell us more about how design helps us achieve sustainability.
So firstly, in terms of luxury and sustainability coexisting, I don't think it's an option. I think it has to. And like many great changes in time that felt challenging, I think in a few years I would hope that it just feels like a natural part of what we do. I think to balance the two, it needs thought, it needs consideration, it does need slowing down of the process. And a lot of times clients come to us and want, everything done sort of so quickly that you can't stop to catch a moment to understand how to handle what's being wasted, where is it being sourced from. I think a lot of successful projects, not just sustainability, but in general, a project's success is about investing the time to educate your client, manage expectations, tell them the cost of innovation, the cost of sustainability, so that they know what they're buying into. And if a client doesn't want to buy into innovation or being sensible about the byproduct of their project, then they're probably not right for us. So I think to invest that up front and have those honest conversations. And I think it links back to luxury, because if it's an enjoyable experience and it's a considered project, a product at the end, where clients feel a part of that journey, then there's no reason it detracts. And I think the construction of elements, from the architecture of it down to the joinery, down to the furniture, I think if you're building good quality, if your hinges are good quality, if you're considering maintenance, the number of times things have to be hacked apart because you need to get to the TV at the back. If you can just put it all on Keku clips and it can release so you can access. So if you're thinking about accessibility, maintenance, quality of hinges, buildability, adaptability, then I just think it can over time just become part of your ethos as a studio and part of your thinking. It doesn't have to feel like a difficult aspect of what you're doing. And actually inherent to us being a London studio, aside from sustainability, we're very proud of the suppliers we can support in the UK, which has a happy byproduct of lending sustainability to what we do. But we enjoy championing British makers, we enjoy championing British heritage, and that happily lends itself to sustainability without compromising luxury at all, in my view.
I think that's it, is that so much of this doesn't need to be like a radical departure
No,
from what
not
we're
at
doing
all.
now.
No.
It's just being more mindful about the way we
Exactly.
do things,
Yes.
how things are delivered.
And I think you can make it fun for your clients. I think if they understand why, and like you said, so many clients are happy to be given a sort of guilt-free ticket, you know. I think if you explain it to them, I'm very open with clients when someone from the team has taken joinery home and said, look, you're throwing this away, can someone from the team, I've never had a client say no. We've had things collected and sent to auction houses so they can be sold on. There's so many ways in which you can.
But I don't think I agree.
Use,
but I don't think it is just the clients. I mean, I actually think often the clients are coming with quite a educated.
It's us, I think.
Well, it's us. I also think it's actually as lot as the tradesmen, the people that who are helping to make your collective vision happen. And we spent years trying to persuade joiners to not sand out all the patina on the wood. Now, certain people don't want the patina, then that's fine. But actually, there are ways in which you can maintain the patina, and teaching joiners how you can do that is one thing. Teaching them how to, well, as we've said before about the gluing, the screwing, not the gluing, that's a big part of it. We've had contractors where it's working on listed buildings, preservation ones, where they're ripping out the old floorboards and literally hurling them out of the window. And you're thinking, hello, have you read the spec? We're using reclaimed materials throughout. That is a reclaimed material. Why are you not treating it with the same amount of respect? I mean, that sounds very bossy.
Communicating with your suppliers and asking questions as well throughout the process, so that
the suppliers
you don't
and the
generate
makers.
more waste, and the makers as well. And Henry, how do you see?
Well, just
sustainability
about suppliers and makers. I mean, I think there's something that they can do better. I've just delivered a project, and the amount of packaging that came with all of the stuff was frightening. I just was surrounded in solid polystyrene, those little white what's-it things that lampshades go in. And I know that they don't want to deliver a piece of furniture and for it to get, or a lamp or whatever it might be, and it get damaged in the process, and then I have to return it. No one wants that process, but there must be a better way of delivering all this stuff to site. There are some companies, one British one I'm using at the moment, that comes with everything wrapped in a blanket. They deliver it to the house, I take the blanket away, and they're gone.
Who's that company? We've got to celebrate that company.
That's Sohn, who did that. That means that I have to project manage that so well that when the chair arrives, and it might be a leather chair, or it doesn't really matter what type of chair, but it doesn't get scratched or something. I've got to manage it so that it comes straight in and goes in place, and it's there. And that's not easy to do, to make sure all of your items come at perfectly at the same time. But the packaging thing is my main gripe at the moment, that I wish that there is a better way of getting things done.
Because you sometimes find yourself organizing, where's the packaging going to go? The packaging needs to be collected. How is it going to be disposed of? It just becomes an extra.
And some of it just goes into landfill. And that's horrendous to think that will happen. The cardboard boxes might get recycled, but not everything needs to come that way.
And moving to more exciting things than packaging, although packaging is important. What is the role of new materials, Nicola?
Well, we're working with a couple of companies at the moment, Pentatonic being one of them, who create new materials out of waste materials, and another company called Biome, who are creating material out of fungus, and the fungus grows on waste plastic. And the fungus can be grown into a mold, so any shape, from there's some bowls in the lounge, but also insulation panels, acoustic panels. We're working with them on large co-living and student housing projects. But what's interesting about that company particularly, the sustainability question doesn't just apply to the environmental issues. It's looking at the cultural, social aspects of society as well. And Biome and Onion Collective partnered to put a factory in place of a paper mill that was closing down and threatening a remote Welsh town. The factory provides employment. It's a carbon negative manufacturer, but also everyone within a postcode owns a share of the business. And I think there are all sorts of companies doing incredible things, and it's our job as super consumers, as interior designers, sort of specifying quantity of things, to really interrogate the companies that we're working with, how they do things, what their sort of supply chain is, and champion the ones who are doing good stuff.
Because there is a bigger picture when a factory is created. In a community, people don't have to commute that far to get to their jobs.
Yeah, that's true.
A building that's already there is being maintained, and this this helps create something positive for everyone involved. Do you guys, the rest of you, do you work with other suppliers who make things out of byproducts? I mean, obviously, besides.
I found a supplier upstairs here who Sylvan Floors, who create flooring out of the waste product from normal wood floor manufacture. So that's quite an interesting one. So I'm going to be looking into what they do a bit more. And I've been using a lot of weavers in Suffolk for making silk for upholstering antique furniture recently. And then I worked on one of the stands here, designing a stand here for Beardmore, the ironmongery company, and all of their product is made in Sussex.
And did I spot you earlier holding a sample of a rug that was all made?
Oh yeah, and this rug here.
Oh, there it is.
From Jennifer Manners. That's made out of 100% plastic bottles, recycled plastic bottles. And then she's got some other ones on her stand, which are much more sort of silky feeling as well. So there are some great products out there. She won the Best New Sustainable Product Award at Decorex this year. Yeah. And
to wrap up our talk, do you have any tips for other designers and consumers on how to achieve that balance between luxury and sustainability, Charu?
I think it's just talking before this talk, I realized how much I don't know. So I think the core of it is education. I think to ask lots of questions. I think if it's part of your mental process, so if you can ask questions on how was that made, what's the byproduct, is there an alternative? We've at our recent project at Chelsea Barracks, we've had some amazing decorative vases that are made out of recycled plastic. We discovered them as we asked questions. At a recent project in Sri Lanka, a hotel, there's a plan to use a lot of local jute and coir. A lot of that's from actually what's inherent to most of us in the design world is a inherent curiosity. And I think if you can divert that curiosity to capture asking questions pertaining to sustainability, I think there's incredible innovation in materiality out there, but we're just used to using, as am I, a certain stock of materials, and I just haven't, I'm amazed at that. So there's just so much out there, and it's for us, because it's architecture and interior design, it's not just the materiality inside the building, but in facade systems, how you can, temperature control your projects so that you're not having to ramp up the heating in the winter, ramp up the cooling in the summer, adaptability on facade systems. A lot of our projects with clients having multiple homes are unoccupied. What happens to those homes when there's no one there? That's a big part of sustainability if they're constantly with the heat on or the cooling on. So I think educate yourselves, and then as a byproduct of that, educate your clients. And I think that can produce an amazing synergy. And then actually, in how your projects are built, the people who are ultimately, you're placing your projects ultimately in the hands of your guys on site. Are you asking them? I mean, it made me realize a whole host of questions we probably don't ask. And so are you asking the right questions? Are you taking the time to, make them aware of the decisions they make day to day on site? Because you're not there as a designer. So I think just turn your curiosity to the subject would be my suggestion.
And for me, just making something well and making it once is a good way of being sustainable. So a piece of furniture, or even the whole project, can last. Would be so. It's not, in things like fashion, there's throwaway culture. I've just been into a house I'm doing for a client, which has been done by a developer, and it's pretty rubbish. We've had to redo all of the electrics. Quite a lot of the plumbing, all of the furniture he wanted to get rid of because the quality was terrible. It's been repurposed. It's gone to charity, which is a good thing. But yeah, some of the things developers do does frustrate.
I would like to open up now the conversation to the audience. Do any of you have questions for our panelists?
Hello. Well, I'd just like to say there's so many people here, which is a good sign that we're all really keen to try and do a better job of this. Oops. Hello. So how can we share this information? Probably if you ask everyone here, they've got a few tips, a few good suppliers they know that are sustainable, but is there a platform, or can someone like a Porter provide us with a platform where we can all recommend good sustainable companies and techniques and methods and take this on to the next stage so that we're putting our money behind the companies that are actually doing the right thing and making the other companies have to get their act together?
That's such a great idea. I think ePorter should step up and do exactly that. I don't know of one. Does anyone know of one?
No.
But I think shows like this, fairs like this, do start the conversation. And coming from this panel, you will all go out there and ask questions when you visit the fabulous stands at Decorex. But yes, I guess ePorta is now on the spot to start this movement. Any other question at the back? Hello.
Hi, I'm Lorna. I'm actually from ePorter.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, so this is actually something we really have been looking into ourselves. And we do quite a lot of articles about sustainability and how to design sustainably. And it is something that we're adding into the filter system so that you can search purely for sustainable products on the platform too.
Oh,
so watch this space, it will be happening soon.
Question here at the front. Is that our last question? Yes, okay.
Hi, great talk. What role does technology within the fabric of a home then play for your designs and sustainability?
So a significant amount in cooling and home automation, because you can have facade systems where you have inbuilt interstitial blinds so that if a property is unoccupied, which it acknowledges through the automation, because you can press an away button, then when the property heats up to a certain temperature, rather than the air conditioning coming on, the blinds can come down, protects solar gain. So you don't have to have the boiler, even, ours, you don't have to have your boiler on all the time. You can have it set up on an app. So automation, I think in terms of temperature control and maintenance, can play a huge role in connecting to sustainability.